Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we are sitting down to talk about the brand new Elden Ring video game, Shadow of the Erdtree. No, I'm not calling it DLC. No, I'm not. Miyazaki did it again, you filthy liar. Under-promise, over-deliver. He did it again, right? Oh, it's the size of Limgrave. Dude, this is a whole video game. 40 to 50 hours here, easily. It is insane. You could spend so much time on it. You don't gotta watch the rest of this review. It's 40 bucks, easily spent. It's a must play. Don't waste your time looking for other games. Go play some more Elden Ring. It really is that good. But for those of you who are curious about learning more, I'm gonna break down Shadow of the Erdtree. Why is it so special? How does Elden Ring, which was a cultural phenomenon, respond to some of the feedback it received? Does it double down on the game's strength and weaknesses? Or does it go all in on the difficulty some were seeking? Well, I got good news for you because this game beat my butt pretty bad. So let's dive deep. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into the occasional day one review, please consider subscribing. Starting off at the top, one thing that people critiqued Elden Ring for, but I think it's just wisely using the mechanics to your advantage if you need to, is that let's say you're stuck on a boss and you need to level up. You can run away, kill some enemies, farm some souls, come back to that enemy, come back to that boss, and you have a pretty good chance of rinsing them. Combine that with Ashes of War, like the Mimic tier, and you've got a game that I will admit is considerably easier than the usual offering from Software. They heard y'all. They heard y'all loud and clear with Shadow of the Erdtree. Here's how they plan to absolutely wax you every single day of the week in this new game. I like to tell it with a bit of a story though. So I fire up this DLC after, by the way, grinding for a couple hours to get to Moog, to get to Radon, to go ahead and unlock this DLC. Then my build wasn't working because I kept dying. My bleed build was awful. Fighting Cowboy, we're gonna have a word. That bleed build was not working out for me. So I go back to my old Faith build. So I had to unlock respecking, meaning I had to run through the Academy of Raya Lucaria once more. After doing all that, come back to the DLC. Now we're doing solid damage. The big fear I had was a relapse of what occurred to me when I first played Old Hunters, which is one of the few From Software DLCs I never finished because I was on New Game Plus 4 and the experience was not balanced well for that. So stepping into there, I was getting one hit by mob enemies and I was not having fun. So yeah, From Software made me tap once, and it's with my favorite FromSoft experience. So now I'm just waiting for the re-release or the remaster, if it's ever going to happen, to experience that for the first time. I digress. The reason I bring all of that up is because going into Shadow of the Erdtree, I go to my right and I find this naked man, and I'm thinking like, all right, sweet, a named enemy off the rip, like let's square up and do this. And oh, he rinses me pretty quickly. Okay, all right, he's a named enemy. I know this better than anyone. I'm not going to challenge you for a while. From Software's trolling me that the naked dude's beating me up and I have fully beefed up weapons. I'm almost level 200. Okay, cool. Okay, so let me ride and take on this common enemy that's pretty much a bird. Oh, I died again. I got so nervous at this point. I went, oh my God, I'm on New Game Plus 2 in Elden Ring. Am I about to get filtered again by From Software? I'm going to let you know here and now, this is part of the design that I think for some will be hit or miss because it turns Elden Ring into a bit of a hunting and gathering game to power scale. It's not as bad as it sounds on paper, so let me break it down. What happens is when you load into this Shadow Realm, this whole new gigantic set of maps, you are going to have your same set of stats that you did when you built your character. And fret not, you'll still get souls, you'll still level up, but you'll notice that your stats have turned yellow. There are these fragments called Scadutree fragments. I'm going to go with Skadoo because it kind of runs out the tongue a little easier. Fragments. And there are 20 of these, each of them increasing your power by about 5%. And what you'll notice is suddenly those enemies that were botting you pretty badly, they're a little bit more manageable now. Builds still matter, but the game absolutely expects you to be in a god tier area by the time you reach Shadow of the Erdtree. They expect you to have fully upgraded weapons. They expect you to have fully maxed out builds. They expect you to have the best armor. They expect you to have the best Ashes of War. They expect you to summon a lot. They expect you to have the best spells. Everything is there that brings it back to a level that reminded me of my feelings with Dark Souls 1. Because of how many Souls-like games there are out there, it's very easy to forget that feeling of what it was like to play a FromSoft style experience before and kind of get beat up and having to relearn the game and having these grueling long gauntlets against a ton of tough mob enemies until you get to that next bonfire, or in this case, that next grace point. But a lot of that is very prevalent here in Elden Ring. Not only are some of these dungeons the most impressive in the terms of visual diversity and how non-linear they are, leading to completely different sections of the map entirely, being totally open-ended to explore, but they're also some of the toughest that they have built. So as you're roaming all of these different areas, you're going to find these new fragments as well as spirit ashes, and you're going to use these to either power up your character's attack and defense or your ashes of war that can do more damage in turn. So it effectively, in a strange way, level zeros you for the DLC, and you need these fragments to make substantial progress. And make no mistake, you can get to the final boss of this DLC, oh wait, what did I call it? This game quickly, but it will require a lot more strength, I'll just say, to finish things out. This boss, I'll just say, it's no joke, man. This is insane. It's absolutely insane. So yeah, to those of you who think Elden Ring is easy, there are the Elden Ring moments where you summon in your Mimic Tier. I'm a Mimic Tier user. I don't care. You can judge me. It's there in the game. I enjoy it. And quite frankly, I think some bosses are still very much built around the expectation that you will be bringing this into the fray. But there are some unique changes under the hood here that feel so specifically geared towards certain players with the crutch. I'm looking at myself here like, oh, I step into the boss arena, let me summon my Mimic Tier. Oh, they're no longer slowly walking at you, waiting for you to summon everything, use your incantations, take your potions. They are running at you the second you get in that arena, and they are giving you no room to breathe. The difficulty is back. From Software heard you, and I think Elden Ring was plenty difficult, but comparatively speaking to games I've played in the past, yes, I agree with the consensus. Elden Ring was a bit of a step down, but I think it accomplished so much more that it was okay. But holy smokes, they brought back the heat with this one. Some of these dungeon stretches are so Dark Souls 1 coded, like Zen's Fortress coded, where you're going through traps and hazards and tough mob enemies, and you're like, where is the next bonfire point? Please, someone save me. And you finally make it. It is the biggest sigh of relief that you can imagine. So yes, more than anything, to open up this review, I wanted to assure you that the difficulty is back and it's well and truly there, and it is going to smush you a lot. I personally didn't die much in Elden Ring. I don't say that as a flex, but I just didn't die much in that game. I think I had the perfect build for the game. I think the title favors the faith build, and let's be honest, like the blasphemous blade is kind of disgusting. But in Shadow of the Erdtree, I die a lot. This game has some of the most messed up looking enemies I have seen in a FromSoft experience. They expand the lore, in particular on one character I will not show you, which I am so stoked to see people's reactions to. This is a goated mob enemy, a goated grunt in FromSoftware history as far as I'm concerned. But more than anything, the bosses, I think, have significantly improved. One of the big obstacles, especially for new players, was, I think, Godric. I think he was a toughie for those who were first stepping into Elden Ring. You really had to earn it. You had to fight your way through it, but it was very rewarding. I feel like this game just turns it up 20 notches and has some really tough bosses. There's one in particular that really had me banging my head against the wall, and it was like what you would consider in this DLC a mid-tier boss. It is truly challenging, but I think I've hammered that point home enough here. Let's move on to some of the rest of the stuff. Shadow of the Erdtree includes a bunch of new weapons. I will not spoil them all for you. I think that some of the fun of this game is exploring and discovering something completely brand new and changing how you play. What I'd recommend for those of you listening or watching is to maybe grind a little bit to get some smithing stones ready to level up those new weapons. Given this new difficulty curve, yes, these new weapons can benefit you in the base game. You take everything with you into the base game. You don't take those stat bonuses I was talking about with the tree fragments with you, but you'll take the weapons with you and all that good stuff. They're not going to be as effective unless they're upgraded to at least +10. So you have a lot of moments in this DLC where you'll pick up a new weapon and go, oh, this is really cool. Okay, you swing it around a little bit, but it just doesn't do as much damage as this other weapon I got. And yeah, I think these games are a product of the comfort space you're in. It's like, I know this weapon is the weapon I trust. I'm probably going to stick with it. But there are some that got me, looking over my shoulder a bit. Maybe I'm feeling a little unloyal to the blasphemous blade all of a sudden. There are these dual swords that you can get, and you can summon some insane spells with them, but you can also kind of wield this light greatsword, almost as like a fencing sword. It's unbelievable. And it brings back some vibes of Bloodborne, in that Bloodborne had the weapons that would switch around in their modes, and that would allow you to have multiple fighting styles with one weapon equipped. Here in Elden Ring, by the way that things function single-handed and double-handed and the abilities that are attached to them, you'll really get some unique combinations, some unique ways of approaching combat that you don't have with the base Elden Ring weapons. So yeah, they knocked it out of the park with brand new weapons as well in Shadow of the Erdtree. One thing I do have to call out as a negative, and I've waited to this point because I think that all of the positives have overruled this, is PC performance still isn't great. When I played Elden Ring on my PC originally, there was a bit of frame skipping, but it wasn't the end of the world for me. It was just kind of there, and, you know, From Software is known for not the best PC ports. But in Shadow of the Erdtree, I had 3 different crashes in my experience, and that is very unlike From Software. It's one thing to have the kind of PC port. I don't know if this was the same experience for other reviewers, but something just to keep an eye out for. Did it ruin anything for me? No, clearly. I'm mentioning it at the 10+ minute mark, but you should be aware that on PC, I did encounter some technical issues that did cause me to reload the entire game, and that did get annoying on the 3rd time. So just keep that sort of stuff in mind when you're going to purchase this DLC. Bugs and glitches wise, you're clear. It is polished, but just the crashes were a little bit more prevalent than I was anticipating. Perhaps the best thing that I can say about Shadow of the Erdtree beyond its difficulty, which maybe some expected, is its sheer scale and scope. One thing I've hammered home in this review is that Shadow of the Erdtree is positively massive. Now, I've put a decent amount of hours into it. There is still so much for me to see. And yes, you can absolutely finish the main line, if you will, for this DLC and have a ton left to do. Not just in the little collectibles of fragments, but also just in seeing parts of this world. You remember when you were playing Elden Ring for the first time and you got to the Siofra Riverwell? That moment of going, oh my god, this game is boundless. I didn't think I'd really ever experienced that feeling for a long while. The last time before Elden Ring that I experienced that emotion was actually Skyrim. So yeah, there's pretty big gaps there. To have a game provide that feeling once more in Shadow of the Erdtree is incredible, because you continue to just dig deeper and deeper into this game, and there's more and more being offered. At the heart of this is a non-linear dungeon that, as I mentioned earlier, branches into so many different paths. I'll make a right instead of a left and end up in some incredibly vast part of the world that has like a new set of woodlands, new dungeons all to themselves, unique side bosses and encounters and loot over there. Okay, now I'm gonna go to the left. Now I'm down in the Scarlet Rot catacombs. I'm barely scraping by in what feels like a FromSoft level gauntlet. Like, there are just so many different feelings and experiences packed into this DLC, and the scope of it is truly, I'm going to use the Keanu Reeves word, breathtaking. It is unbelievable how much is packed into this. Yes, many of you have come to expect and know From Software doesn't miss on DLC, but this does feel like a whole other level in the terms of scale and scope, a new industry standard for how much you can get within expansion, if you will. That's the only time I'm going to call it that, because I know I'm speaking in technicalities this time. Otherwise, go in expecting not this, oh, dip in the pool, like, oh, it's a quick jumping back into Elden Ring for a week. No, man. No, you are going to be there for a while. This is a whole other game. Prepare yourself mentally. I also have to say, as a resident step-out expert, we need to start including From Software in this conversation. It's been time, but there may be a new king in town with step-out moments. So when I say step-out moments, what I'm thinking of is the Fallout 3 exiting Vault 101. I'm thinking of Skyrim and just stepping out, completely submerged in this world. Oblivion, stepping out of the prison. From Software with Elden Ring, particularly Shadow of the Erdtree, has like 18 step-out moments where you just get there and go, oh my god, there's more, and it's that vast. It continues to wow and amaze with its visuals, not just in its color palette, its beautiful use of lighting and shadow work. It's just industry standard setting stuff. It's just also how they do all this on such a massive scope This continues to be, to me, the mark that open world games have to reach. Not guiding you in any particular way, fearlessly crushing your spirit often, and expecting you to figure out the rest. There is no one talking in your ear, as you've come to know with Elden Ring. It's just get in there and figure it out yourself. And there's more of that here in Shadow of the Erdtree, but it is that same feeling of, holy smokes, I've been in this dungeon for a while. I came out of it thinking I'm getting to the end of it, and I just got to the beginning of a whole new multi-hour journey. I'm going to be here for a while. I can't say enough good things about this. I think Shadow of the Erdtree is fantastic, and this is something that's going to crack a lot of Game of the Year lists. This is like Phantom Liberty level stuff. This is how people felt about Old Hunters. This is how people felt about Blood and Wine. This is how people felt about Burial at Sea. This is how people felt about Far Harbor or Shivering Isles. Like, it's that tier of DLC. You know what I'm talking about? You know, the GOAT DLC? That's what I'm talking about here. So yeah, very few complaints. If I were to give you a word of warning on anything, it's kind of what I mentioned at the beginning. I think some people may not take well to the new level of scaling in Shadow of the Erdtree. I could see some people having problems with scaling and progression being based around items heavily here. But I think when you look at it as part of a package where you have the base leveling experience, and that's still very much a factor here in Shadow of the Erdtree, but pretty much this end game area that expects you to arrive here and happily will beat your butt, then you have a new level of scaling, a new way to play the game. I enjoyed it because it feeds into what Elden Ring does really well. Exploration, searching every corner, picking up every piece of loot is incredibly worthwhile. Talking to every character is incredibly worthwhile. And you'll get a lot of that done here. I know I haven't talked on the story that much. That's because I'm not as invested in Elden Ring lore or really FromSoft lore as I am with other games, but you do get some pretty serious questions answered here. You can tell just by watching the trailers what they're targeting, like what was going on with Mikola. You're going to get those answers in this game. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I've gone on long enough. Shadow of the Erdtree is fantastic. This is a game you must purchase if you enjoy anything about the FromSoft experience. And I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below. Will you be picking it up? How are you preparing for the DLC? Are you doing a new full run? Are you going to be getting those smithing stones like I suggested? You have all of your T's crossed and your I's dotted before Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is upon us. Let me know down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.